Brooklyn, New York, November 1899. Outside a modest row house at 144 Floyd Street, the crowd is so thick that police are redirecting traffic. Inside, clerks are literally stuffing cash into desk drawers, closets, and a bathtub, because the office safe filled up days ago. The man they're all here to see is 21 years old. He teaches Bible class on Sundays. His neighbors describe him as the most trustworthy young man in Williamsburg. And he has made his neighbors a promise that echoes down this entire series. 10%. Not a year. Not a month. 10% a week. The newspapers do the math and give him the nickname that will follow him to the grave, 520% Miller. In under a year, more than $1 million pours through that Brooklyn row house. At a time when $1 million is a dynasty, every element of the modern scheme is here, 20 years before Ponzi. The impossible rate, the friends first recruiting, the payouts drawn from the deposits, even the getaway lawyer. And at the very end of this story, history will play one of its finest jokes. Because when Charles Ponzi finally makes his headlines in 1920, the reporters will need an expert. And they will find one, running a grocery store on Long Island. William Franklin Miller is, by every account, exactly what he appears to be: earnest, devout, hard-working, and broke. He clerks in Manhattan for $6 a week, teaches Sunday school at a Brooklyn church, and supports a sick wife. He has tried, honestly, to get ahead, even buying into the market with borrowed money and losing it. That failure teaches him the lesson that builds everything after. The market is a rigged game. Everyone in Brooklyn believes it, and the winners are insiders with information. So when Miller starts in March 1899, he doesn't sell an investment. He sells access. He tells 3 friends from his Bible class that he has inside connections downtown, tips from the syndicates, the sure things the big men trade on. He can't reveal sources, obviously, but he'll cut his friends in 10% a week on any money they place with him. The first deposits are $10 and $20. He pays the first week's interest on time, $1 here, $2 there. Pocket change buys him the only currency that matters, proof. And through the churches and tenements of Brooklyn, the proof spreads like fire in a hayloft. Depositors bring brothers, wives, pastors. Miller incorporates grandly as the Franklin Syndicate, Franklin as in Benjamin, whose portrait hangs in the office beside the slogan, "In union there is strength." By autumn, the row house on Floyd Street is processing hundreds of deposits a day. He hires clerks from among his investors. Receipts are handwritten, money is everywhere. The famous bathtub of cash is not a legend, it's testimony. Do the arithmetic, the depositors wouldn't. 10% a week is 520% a year, uncompounded. No investment on earth returns it. Every interest dollar Miller pays is simply another depositor's principal coming back out the window. The machine's hunger grows 10% a week forever. It is a countdown, wearing a party hat. But while it runs, it is glorious. Mail sacks arrive from New England, Pennsylvania, the Midwest. The Franklin Syndicate now takes deposits by post. On the biggest days, $63,000 comes through the door of a house worth a tenth of that. Success attracts predators. A sharp promoter named Edward Schlesinger attaches himself to Miller and takes a cut to spread the gospel. More fatefully, Miller retains a lawyer named Robert Ammon, corrupt, brilliant, and instantly aware that his client is a golden goose who can never go to the police. Ammon becomes the scheme's true beneficiary. He structures things, advises things, and steadily moves the money toward himself. Miller, the mastermind of the greatest fraud in America, is himself being harvested by his own attorney. Remember Zerossi's teller in Montreal, learning by watching his boss. The food chain of fraud always has another level. The end begins the way it began for Sarah Howe. A newspaper does arithmetic. The financial press, notably the Boston Post's New York peers, and eventually the papers Miller's own investors read, starts publishing the impossible math. Nervous depositors ask for principal. In late November 1899, the run arrives at Floyd Street. Miller does what they all do, pays the early panic with theatrical confidence. But this machine is 9 months old and 10% a week hungry, and there is nothing left in the bathtub. Here is where Miller's youth shows. Ponzi met his collapse with donuts and a smile. Kruger with forged bonds. Miller, 21 and terrified, turns to the one man he trusts, his lawyer. Ammon's advice is a masterpiece of self-interest. Flee. Miller signs over securities and cash, the surviving loot of the Franklin Syndicate, well over $100,000, to Ammon for safekeeping, and boards a train for Montreal with a satchel and a false name. The flight lasts weeks. The manhunt is a newspaper carnival. His wife and baby are watched. And when detectives finally take him, betrayed by most accounts through the very associates who'd profited from him, Miller comes back over the border in handcuffs to find that he, alone, will wear the entire scheme. He is convicted of grand larceny in 1900 and sentenced to 10 years in Sing Sing. Ammon, holding the money, walks free. For 3 years, Miller sits in a cell while his lawyer enjoys his fortune, the machine's final, cruelest transfer of wealth from believer to insider. It takes prosecutors until 1903 to close the loop. With Miller's testimony, the good Bible teacher, still meticulous, they convict Robert Ammon of receiving the stolen funds. It is one of the first times in American history the lawyer behind a fraud goes to prison alongside the fraud. Miller's cooperation earns him a pardon after 5 years, tuberculosis in his lungs, and his notoriety intact. And then William Miller does the rarest thing in this entire series. He stops. No sequel scheme. No new alias, no comeback. He changes his name locally. The neighbors know him as Mr. Schmidt and runs a small grocery store in Rockville Center, Long Island. He weighs flour, stocks shelves, raises his family. The man who once took $63,000 in a day now counts pennies across a wooden counter and by every account prefers it. 20 years pass. Then, in the summer of 1920, Boston erupts with a story. An immigrant financier paying 50% in 45 days. Crowds around the block, millions a week. Editors across the country reach for context. Someone remembers the nickname. Reporters find the retired 520% Miller behind his grocery counter and ask the perfect question: is Charles Ponzi for real? His answer is the quiet thesis of this whole channel. He looks at Ponzi's numbers and explains patiently, from professional experience, the returns are impossible. The man must be paying old investors with new money. It will end the way these things always end. The reformed fraud reads the fraud perfectly. The only people fooled are the ones inside it. There's even a coda, the Boston Post, the paper whose arithmetic would bring Ponzi down weeks later, cited the old Brooklyn case as the pattern. The ghost of Floyd Street helped bury its successor. The scheme that history named after Ponzi could just as easily bear the name of a Brooklyn Sunday school teacher or a Boston fortune teller. And that is precisely the point. It never belonged to any of them. It's older than all of them, and it is always hiring. The playbook. What 520% Miller adds to the manual? Rule 1, sell access, not returns. I know people survive scrutiny that I earn miracles never could. Rule 2, small early payouts buy the only currency that matters, proof. A $2 dividend recruits a whole congregation. Rule 3, watch the man above you. Every fraud has its own predator, and the lawyer holds the pen. The paper empire ledger now stands at roughly 275 million stolen. It will grow, because money was never paper. It's belief wearing paper's clothes. Next time on Paper Empire, the heirs of Sir Francis Drake are owed a fortune 3 centuries old. Billions compounding since 1596, and one Iowa farm boy holds the secret to unlocking it. 70,000 Americans will fund his London mansion for 20 years, through the Depression, past his arrest, even after the verdict. The inheritance that never existed. Next. Subscribe.